Welcome to Bed Crime Stories Podcast. I'm your host, T, and I hope you guys are having a marvelous day. It's been called a crime of passion, which immediately calls forth images of a love triangle, at least for me. But is that what really happened? No one seems to know at this point. Here's what can be said. In the early hours of Sunday, November 13th, 2022, something evil was unleashed in a mad, vicious fury inside an off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho, near the University of Idaho. Here is what the Moscow Police Department said about the crime in their first press conference on Wednesday.
This is a horrible crime that took the lives of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves. This horrible crime has affected all of us, the families, the University of Idaho, our community, our country, and our officers. Agencies that are involved in this task force include Lake County Sheriff's Office, the Idaho State Police, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. As we continue our investigation, we have learned that Ethan and Xana were at a party on campus, and Madison and Kaylee were at a downtown bar. They arrived home sometime after 1:45. If anyone in our community or across our nation has any information about these times or the victim's whereabouts, please call our tip line at 208-883-7180. The facts of the case that we know right now. We know that these homicides occurred in the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th. Around noon, Moscow officers received a call of an unconscious person. Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves inside the residence on King Road. The four were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time. There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. Investigators are continuing to collect evidence at the scene. Investigators are working to develop a timeline to relevant events. Autopsies are taking place today on all the victims so we can continue to gather evidence and solve the crime. Investigators are working to follow up on all leads and to identify a person of interest.
Four vibrant students, 21-year-old Madison Mogan, 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin were cut down in what had to have been a surprise attack. How else to explain four young people in the prime of their lives being done in all at the same time? Were they asleep when this occurred? Could there have been more than one perpetrator? We don't yet know. Note that while an edged weapon is believed to have been used, it is yet to be found, and whoever committed this crime is also yet to be found. The three females, Madison, Kaylee, and Xana, shared the off-campus house. One male who was among the dead, Ethan Chapin, was Xana's boyfriend, and the two of them had been to a party on campus earlier on Saturday night. According to Ethan's mother, Sarah Chapin, Ethan did not live at the house, but was sleeping over that night with his girlfriend, Xana. Hours earlier on Saturday, Kaylee had posted a photo of herself with Madison, Xana, and Ethan with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." The caption was accompanied by a heart emoji. So we know for sure that the four students were all friends, and this crime was not perpetrated by any one of them. Best friends since childhood, Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves did everything together. And so it was that they were out Saturday night having some weekend fun at a downtown bar. On the way home, the two blonde besties stopped off at a food truck and ordered some pasta carbonara. The truck's Twitch livestream feed picked up Madison and Kaylee at around 1:41 a.m., ordering their food and then standing nearby in the chilly night air for roughly 10 minutes as the order was prepared. That footage would be the last time the two young ladies would be captured alive. What we see in the video footage are two happy young women. Kaylee looks perhaps a little tipsy, Madison a little less so. The only alarming part of the video is a young man wearing a hoodie under a jacket who seems to show up at the food truck around the same time as Madison and Kaylee. He hovers behind them, but Madison and Kaylee barely give him the time of day. And when the young women depart with their pasta, he too leaves, but in an opposite direction. The police are now asking for anyone who can identify this guy to come forward. Whether he's involved in the crime remains to be seen. The attack had to have occurred sometime after, say, 1:50 a.m. when Madison and Kaylee arrived home, and before 4 a.m. According to the police, the four students died sometime between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Former FBI agent and ABC News contributor Brad Garrett said this, and I quote, "You really are going to have to do a complete detail of the party that was prior to whatever was going on between 3 and 4 o'clock at the victim's house. Who followed them home? Who has been taking whom? Who have had issues with people? The perpetrator didn't all of a sudden show up at this house. He knew this house." End quote. And here are the two WTF moments, at least for me, in this crime. First, it turns out that there were two other roommates in the home at the time of the crime, and they were not hurt. Second, no one dialed 911 until noon on Sunday, many hours after this rampage. And whoever called the police only told the dispatch operator that there was an unconscious person at the house requiring attention. When the officers arrived at the address, they found the front door open. Expecting to step inside and maybe find just an unconscious student who perhaps had too much to drink, the officers instead discovered 4 deceased students in what had to have been one of the most upsetting crime scenes ever. The crime was so brutal that the red stuff that flows through all of our veins was actually seen leaking from the house and dripping down an exterior wall. I'm sorry to be so graphic, but that's the reality of this crime. I'm trying to wrap my brain around how 2 other roommates could be in the house when this attack occurred and neither of them be injured. Also, why didn't one of them dial 911 much earlier? Did they not hear the attack going down? Surely there had to be some screams. At first, I thought maybe those 2 roommates were involved, but that is not what the police are saying at this point. Perhaps they too had been out drinking and were completely out of it when the crime went down. Who knows? The 2 roommates were still at the house when the police arrived post the 911 call on Sunday. According to the police, there was no evidence of forced entry. Chief Fry of the Moscow Police Department said, and I quote, "We're not 100% sure the door was unlocked. There was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there." End quote. Former FBI agent Brad Garrett talked about the surviving roommates and said they are key to the investigation. Garrett also stated that he doesn't think that they are suspects. He stated, and I quote, "It's a small town. The likelihood that they know who that person was in the house, I think it's reasonable." End quote. I'm also wondering how 4 people were attacked in this manner all at the same time. It makes me think that maybe more than one person committed the crime. Or perhaps the students who were attacked were sleeping at the time and thus caught completely unaware. And today I learned that investigators are exploring the possibility that more than one person is behind this brutal crime. Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson has said, "It certainly is possible that there may be more than one perpetrator out there." The Moscow Police Department initially called the crime a targeted attack and said there was no threat to the public. However, Police Chief James Fry later declared this, and I quote, "We cannot say there's no threat to the community. And, as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware." End quote. The mixed messages from the police have rankled the 24,000 or so residents of Moscow, a city that hasn't recorded a crime like this since 2015, and fear has led many students to flee the campus and head home early for the Thanksgiving holiday. Note that autopsies were conducted on Wednesday, November 16th. Who were these 4 beautiful souls? Let me tell you a little bit about each one. Kaylee Goncalves was from Rathdrum, Idaho, and she was a senior majoring in general studies and a member of the Alpha Phi sorority. Her older sister, Olivia Goncalves, sent a statement to the Idaho Statesman newspaper on behalf of her family and that of Madison Mogen. The statement reads, and I quote, "They were smart, they were vigilant, they were careful, and this all still happened. No one is in custody, and that means no one is safe. Yes, we are all heartbroken." End quote. Madison Mogen was from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and was a senior majoring in marketing. She was also a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. 20-year-old Ethan Chapin was one of 3 triplets. Ethan's parents learned of their son's death from his 2 siblings who were also enrolled at the University of Idaho. According to Ethan's mother, Stacy Chapin, Ethan lit up every room he walked into and was kind, loyal, a loving son, brother, cousin, and friend. End quote. As you can imagine, Ethan's siblings are having a very difficult time. Said their mother, "We're just trying to process it. It's not a call that you think that you're going to have to speak with the funeral home directors and the FBI and have it hit the national news." End quote. Ethan's father, Jim Chapin, issued a statement on Wednesday, November 16th, calling on the police to release more information about the crime. He said, and I quote, "There is a lack of information from the University of Idaho and the local police, which only fuels false rumors and innuendo in the press and social media." End quote. Ethan's girlfriend, Xana Coronado, was from Avondale, Arizona, and like Madison Mogen, Xana was majoring in marketing and was a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. Her older sister, Jasmine, describes her as funny, positive, and loved by everyone who met her. "She was so lighthearted and always lifted up a room. She made me such a proud big sister." End quote. Jasmine also stated that her sister Xana was lucky to have her 3 friends in her life. Chief Fry is urging anyone with information about the victim's whereabouts on Saturday night to call the tip line at 208-883-7180. Do me a favor, hit that like button, and now listen to a portion of an interview that was done with Ethan Chapin's parents.
You first just tell me how you guys are doing.
That's a tough
That
question.
is a tough question.
It's not something you ever expect to hear, ever. Like the call we took from our kids who were there, and you just expect to outlive your kids. Honestly, I don't know. We're just trying to process it. It's not a call that you think that you're going to have to speak with the funeral home directors and the FBI and have it hit national news. I mean, we're more concerned, Ethan was a triplet, and that's a big thing. There's a couple of things. Ethan was a triplet, and that's the most important thing for us because we have these other two kids that are very impacted by this, and they need to be lifted up and cared for. And I think the other thing that's important to us is the reason why we've agreed to do this is, number one, you're local. And number two, it's important for us to get Ethan's story out. We don't really want anybody else representing him. And it's hard to have people speaking on his behalf. So we think it's best for us to do this.
And you did say, of course, that he was a triplet, and looking through the pictures you sent, like you said, they seem to be always together. I mean, did they all go to high school and then college together also?
Yep.
Elementary,
Yep.
High school, everything, college, they all went to the same university. Yeah, I mean, everything. We travel, we play, we hike, everything we do is all of us together. I mean, we're a pretty tight family.
Did you say that they were the ones that called you about this happening?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then are you guys all back together now?
We are.
Yeah, we're in our home in northern Idaho, our summer home. We're going to be here for a couple days just to regroup a little.
Yeah.
And can you just tell me a little bit about Ethan? I think I was told he was very athletic. I think he played, was it basketball and tennis or basketball? Just tell me a little about his interests. What did Ethan like to do?
Anything.
You
You name
anything.
it, he played it, literally. I think we just watched a thing from the university, spike ball champion, volleyball champion. I mean, right? I mean, he just literally would play and do anything.